Woo! Celebrate good times. Come on. Da-da-da-da. Did you hear the good news, guys? You and I are getting paid.
Members, the outcome of the division is as follows. There were no abstentions. 182 voted against and 194 voted in favor.
Yeah! We getting paid! Money, 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 money! Woo!
Honorable members. Honorable members.
We getting our money! Woo!
Honorable members, the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals and the report of the Standing Committee on Finance is thus adopted.
Woo! We are getting paid or robbed. Okay, why are they so excited? Well, they're happy that every friend they have, they've managed to fight for their friend's budget. They're happy that they get to fund all the stuff they need to do for the people. And so, unfortunately, you and I are financing that party. If you don't know what's going on, the first part of probably a 3, 4, 5-part process to pass a budget increase was passed yesterday with the ANC ActionSA coming in to help the other GNU parties, PA, who is supposed to know better. Shocking. IFP assisted with the budget, came with very weak sort of things, and the DA opposed it together with the EFF and the MK and I think the Freedom Front and a couple of smaller parties. But the budget's come through, and now they're celebrating like this. Now let's just make it clear. There's nothing wrong with taxes. There's nothing wrong with taxes. We are to be subject to governing authorities. Why? Because they are ordained by God. For what purpose? To terrify evil workers. To make those who do wrong afraid. And those who do good to be praised. Now, I know because we're in a country that's so used to this hating business and stuff, but no, those are people who do good. I know because they paid me salaries. I know because if it wasn't for business, I wouldn't have developed my skills in the things I do. Business is good. Business is godly. It's a good thing. So government's supposed to praise business, and for that reason and all other good, looking after the poor is good. Government is supposed to have budget to praise those who look after the poor. The government is not supposed to look after the poor. They're supposed to praise those who look after the poor. And so that's why the government bears the sword. What does that mean? The state has a monopoly on violence. So no one is allowed to be violent. No one is allowed to force anyone to do anything except the government. They can force someone, meaning they can arrest people. They can put them in jail and things like that. Now, the government has that monopoly on force, which means what? When the government deals with ignorant people, they think the government is their uncle. We will build you houses. No, I don't want you to. Why? because you have a right to shoot me in the head if I stop you. So I want to give you the opportunity that the only time you're allowed to shoot me in the head is if I'm shooting at policemen after a bank robbery, when I'm actually doing bad. And so when people are ignorant, they keep saying stuff like we when talking about the government because they are scripturally ignorant and Karl Marx brainwashed, right? So they bear the sword, which means what? They have a right to use force. They have the right to use force. We are not allowed, as when I say we, I mean citizens. We are not allowed to use force. The government uses force, but God says it's ordained that way. And the rest, so half of the budget of government should be for law and order, so that if we get attacked, they can stop it. Law and order would go for, everything that has to do with just protecting us. It's a protection fee. And I'm just using half. And half of it should be used for incentives for those who do good. Those who do good are those who look after the poor, those who employ the citizens, those who do all sorts of stuff, right? Because he's God's minister and avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, you must be subject. You must be subject. But look at this. For because of this, you also pay taxes. Because they are God's ministers attending continually to this very thing. Everything else that the government does, you don't have God's protection if you were happy that they do it. Now, as a result of this, every time a government increases tax in our modern times, they are taking more money to come out of God's plan and do their own thing. Let me tell you something. Someone's going to cry, and it won't be them. I suspect it will be you. So, don't vote for parties that ever want to increase tax, especially because it's not for law and order and it's not for incentives and rewards. See, especially because normally they should be talking about increasing incentives like drop tax, make things easy, reward non-profit organizations, reward churches, and say, if you look after your widows, you will get a rebate, right? Rewards and incentives. That's how government does stuff, not by them being stupid business people. It's so irritating for me because I've built businesses. I've started a company with 300 rands and got it to 5 million turnover in 5 years. I've written a bestseller and sold it to a 9 times bestseller in the country. I say that not to brag, but just to say I know how that works because it's my calling to simplify that for people I talk to. And the most irritating thing to me is listening to some guy who studied sociology talk about business. He knows nothing about it. He's never made a profit. He's never started with 5 tomatoes and turned them to 1,000 a month. So they know nothing. Keep these fools out of business. All they know is to go to government things and eat a lot of food on tax money. And we're happy if they're there to discuss law and order, incentives and rewards, but usually they are not. They're there discussing what other tender they can put together. So I don't like taxes. I don't like paying any tax, but I'm happy to pay a tax towards law and order and incentives and rewards, and no tax beyond that. So in modern society, What we are looking at here are people who've just ripped us off and they're celebrating. So let me say something quickly. So I said three things. So the first thing that they rely on to steal taxes from you is that people are ignorant of why government exists and what right it has to take taxes. So then that's how they get away with it. Number two way that they get away with it, I don't want to tell you, let me show you. Listen to this. Brilliant communicator, this lady, but she wasn't happy. She's the spokesperson of the DA. And so this is what she said after, and then I'll tell you the number two and number three.
You're not looking happy. What does this mean for the GNU? We heard the finance minister earlier on saying that if you vote against us, we can't expect to sit at the same table with us tomorrow.
Equally, the Democratic Alliance made it very clear that we cannot work with a budget that we do not endorse. And that is why we voted against this budget. I want to reiterate that this budget is a budget against the people of this country, against the people of this country who are unable to put food on the table for themselves and their families, who cannot afford to buy school shoes, who cannot afford to basically breathe altogether. And the kingmakers in today's decision was ActionSA. ActionSA sold South Africans to the highest bidder. They traded off the hopes and aspirations of South Africans who were depending on this parliament to be their vanguards for one round of fame. And that is something that will never go down well in the history books of this country altogether. And we know that they sold out the country because, Abraham, Minister Kodongwana told us today that this framework was passed as is. That is still not off the table. They are voting in favor of a hope that come Friday that maybe by God's grace we will be able to see a VAT increase off the table. Mind you, that conversation is about a VAT, is about taxation alone and not about the replacement of the framework as it stands right now as to where the balance that we are going to find against the budget is going to be altogether. But the Democratic Alliance today is very proud to be one of the political parties that led the chant against the VAT increase, led a chant against the destroying the lives of poor South Africans and a middle class that is struggling to make ends meet. Our fight as the Democratic Alliance remains to ensure that we have a budget that is not wasteful, that is free of corruption, that is free of irregular expenditure, as we have seen to be the case in the last 31 years. And thanks to ActionSA, the ANC is back to their gravy train altogether. Our fight as the Democratic Alliance has always been to ensure that our economy grows, because the people of this Republic of South Africa depend on that economy so that they can unlock job opportunities, so that we can alleviate poverty, so that we can bridge the gap between the rich and the poor in this country. Thanks to ActionSA, we will wake up tomorrow to a destroyed nation altogether, and the Democratic Alliance remains proud to have been voting against the madness that we saw today.
Thank you so much for your time.
So I chose this one because she said this budget's gonna affect the rich and no, the poor and the middle class. And of course, for politics, it's always good to say you're standing with the poor. And that's fine. But she says the poor and the middle class. So the DA, I guess, is further this way, not a Marxist organization, so they're allowed to say middle class. Now, the second way that politicians get to sneak VAT taxes up on people, first of all, is by knowing that we don't understand what government, why it exists. But number two is by using the divisions in society, right? So there are three ways that they can do it. First of all, they can tax you through inflation. Second of all, is that they say we are doing a tax for these ones, but not for these ones. Now, if you understand grade 6, grade 8 basic economics, you will know that this is a political trick. So, because if you think about it, if you give me 1,000 rands today, on my way out the gate, if I have an extra 1,000 and I'm kind of happy to receive it, I'm probably gonna try go get a drink, grab a coffee at the restaurant. So that means I'm going to go out, I'm going to put 100 rands in the petrol, and then I'm going to come back and park at the restaurant. And because you gave me 1,000, I'm going to order 2 cups of coffee, and therefore my tip is going to go up. Maybe it's 20 rands with the waiter. Then I'm going to walk out. I'm going to give 5 rands to the car guard, and then I'm going to go see a friend, and then my friend will get to spend a little bit too, and they may borrow for their little cousin who has something at school tomorrow, and I'll give them some, and then we'll probably pass somewhere, give a car guard, and give a waiter, and I'll probably buy airtime, which will pay someone's salary who works at the network, and because that person's salary is paid, some of it goes to the education of their child, and because, right? Now, I'm just describing this 1,000 rands you've given me. Now, does it matter if I was middle class or upper class or rich? No, the 1,000 that you've given me has affected people, everyone across classes, because that's just how money works. Now, someone says, oh yeah, but maybe you'll just bank it. Exactly. I'll bank it, but the bank will now make a loan to someone. That loan will go towards a funeral, which means some people will get money from the food, and the people who get money for the food employ some people who then get to educate their kids, who then get to be the next engineer, and so it's nonsense. There is no such a thing as taxing someone but not someone. And with every tax that's paid, the poor feel it the most. Why? Because it's a difference between if you gave me 1,000 and nothing, or you gave me 20,000 and 15,000, right? I'll feel it less. So, and it doesn't matter who gets taxed. The economy doesn't work like that. You tax one, you tax all. You tax the poor, you've taxed the rich. You tax the rich, you've taxed the middle class. You tax the middle class, you've taxed the poor, you've taxed the rich. Any tax, however they put it, and then they say, yeah, but we'll exclude bread and milk. Nonsense. Why though? It will make the bread cheaper. I've just told you basic economics. If you make the bread cheaper, okay, are you going to make the bread makers' machines cheaper? No, you're going to increase them. What's going to happen? Next time the machine breaks, they're going to try fix it. It's going to cost more. And very soon the price of bread will rise. So they may get a tax break on bread today, but they will pay for the tax that's been passed in 6 months, because at any taxes citizens and takes the money to government. So there are people who talks about, there's one gentleman here, maybe let me play him, he's from one of the black parties. There's one of the undercover Marxists. Here's what he says.
Because of the parties that voted for a VAT hike. If you were to listen even to the speech of the finance minister, he was justifying why the VAT hike is there. He was not talking about the VAT hike is off the table, they're going to find other alternatives. He was committing to South African citizens to say that is the reality and this is the reason why. So it boggles us as a party to say, why do we have other parties speaking about other commitments? Because if there were other commitments, the Minister of Finance would have spoken about those commitments. So it is a shame that majority of the parties that voted today voted for an increase in VAT, whereas there's other alternatives like your wealth tax, mining royalties, because the South African economy or treasury, the amount that was raised by VAT in 2022 was 16 times more than the amount that we received from mining and petroleum royalties. We're a minerally rich country, but we've got a government or a treasury that is lazy when it comes to thinking
Sorry, I'm getting irritated with these Marxists. They talk about minerals because they think their people aren't worth nothing. That's why they drop education and they keep crying about minerals. We're not all miners. So you'll hear what he says because he, he's in the politics of envy, as Marxists are, is that there's a wealth tax. You can't tax any piece of the economy without taxing everyone. So South Africa has lost 20% of its millionaires between 2013 and 2023. That's why everyone is getting poorer. Why? Well, because the millionaire would be spending more as they go. Every millionaire represents a tip, right? Because they probably have more, eating out. So every millionaire who's left is robbery of someone who works at a restaurant, of a car guard, of dry cleaners, of all the things that if you think if I was a millionaire, how would my day go? Well, with every one millionaire that leaves, clothing company suffers. With the people who are working as salespeople there, restaurants suffer with those people. The shops that sell gadgets, they suffer. What about the people who are employed to sell cars? They suffer. What about the people who work at insurance places? They suffer. Everything that a millionaire would be buying suffers. But what these Marxist politicians do with their politics of envy is that they use envy to get citizens to agree to pass more money that God said belongs with citizens to politicians that God never said they have a right to. So that's how you take money from citizens in 3 easy steps. See, where envy and self-seeking, which is self-centeredness, exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. So you can't serve God and Marx, because no man can serve two masters. Either you love one and hate the other, or you respect one or disrespect the other. So you want to know, how do you vote? Take a pick. Just make sure they're not Marxists. If their philosophy is oppressed, oppressor, we need to unite in solidarity, stage a revolution so that we can be happily ever after. Those people are thieves. They will always want more taxes, and they may not use this way, they'll use this way. If it's EFF, they'll go after the land, collapse the economy, it will make them richer. If it's the ANC, they'll increase tax, collapse things, make them richer. If it's the EFF, if it's the MK, they don't believe in law and order. That's why they hate the Constitution, but it will make them richer. Just look for a party that is not Marxist if you are a believer. One, because it's for your prosperity, but two, because you don't want to hate God and disrespect God. If you like it, press the like button. If you have something to say, let me hear you in the comments. And before you go, just remember, ding, ding, ring that bell so we catch you on the next one. No man can serve two masters. So let's make history together. Cheers.